Please like and subscribe. I always figured I was a pretty smart kid. My parents used to watch Jeopardy every night, so I figured I'm probably a pretty smart kid. That's why when my parents told me they were thinking of sending me to a school for the intellectually smart, I said, hey, that's probably smart. So they did. They took me out of my New Jersey public school, sent me to a school for the intellectually smart. They literally had to send me away on a train to get to the school because the smart kids were far from where we lived in New Jersey. Half the reason I wanted to go to the smart school was because taking the train to school made me feel like Harry Potter. I guess that should have been my first indication that I wasn't so smart. But I got to the smart school, and I was immediately freaking out because all the conversations that all the smart kids were having were smart. I heard a kid tell a joke about crime and punishment, and another kid laughed. I said, holy shit. To this day, as an adult, I have no fucking idea what he was laughing about, and I've read that book. It's my favorite book, except for Harry Potter. So these kids were smart. And my whole first day, I'm basically walking through smart conversations, shaking in my little boots, waiting to hear something dumb enough that I can chime in. Nothing was dumb enough, but I did hear one kid talking to another kid about some fantasy type shit. I said, okay, that's kind of dumb. The second this kid stops talking, I'm jumping in. This boy was comparing two fantasy creatures. He said, what do you think would win in a race, a blah 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 or a jackalope? And the second he stopped talking, I said, I saw a jackalope. And the kid said, what? And I'm going to pause the story here because it's important to mention that I hadn't seen a jackalope, ever. A jackalope is a fantasy creature. I should also mention I didn't know what a jackalope was because it was a fantasy creature, but it wasn't in Harry Potter. But I said, oh yeah, I seen a jackalope. And the kid said, what? Do you even know what a jackalope is? And the second he said that, I said, why would you even ask me that? Because the thing about saying something the second someone stops talking is that's usually the second where you'd think of something to say. My slanderer started laughing at me, and as he cajoled, I heard his laughter echo through my soul, like the sound of footsteps scraping across a bridge which connected my present to every past moment I'd ever been fucked with. I didn't just hear him laugh at me. I could see when Cameron Davidson used a glass of water to make me piss myself at my sleepover birthday. Do you see what I'm saying here? It connected me to the moment when Chris Calveo punched me so hard in the stomach that I peed a little. When I was little, I had a little problem with peeing myself a little. But more than any of this, I could see myself getting laughed out of the school for the intellectually smart by Jay Johnson Jr. This kid was actually Jay Johnson's kid. That's true. Jay Johnson was the Secretary of Homeland Security under Barack Obama. That's true. He was responsible for America becoming the preeminent force in drone warfare. And his son Jay Johnson Jr. was responsible for laughing in my face because he thought I didn't saw a jackalope. So I had to spend my whole train ride home figuring out how I was going to prove him wrong. I figured I'd look through my family photo albums. That was actually pretty smart. I started looking through all my family photo albums to find every trip we ever took to the zoo. That took a long time, because who the fuck takes trips to the zoo? It's prison with pandas. But I finally found a picture of when we took a trip to the zoo, and if you could see the picture that I saw, I swear to God, you'd piss your Calvins like I did, because if you didn't know what a jackalope was, you would swear to JC this picture was of me and a motherfucking jackalope. I had a buzz cut. I was wearing a yellow shirt with yellow shorts. Hey, Mom, child abuse. I'm describing this picture because it is a real picture, and in the picture, I was standing next to a jackalope. When I think now about how I felt in that moment, I feel my hands start to shake. It would be like if you loved Jesus Christ and you were told, maybe by Jay Johnson's son, that there was no such thing as JC. And when you were walking away, you tripped over a splinter from the true cross. Felt pretty good. Yeah. So the next day I took the train into school. I wasn't thinking about Harry Potter. I was thinking about how I was going to crucify Jay Johnson Jr. I only had one class with him that day, but it was a new class. And my new teacher said, class, we have to welcome a new student. DJ, why don't you come up and tell the class 2 truths and a lie? So I said, perfect. I'm from New Jersey. I've seen a jackalope. and I'm Jay Johnson's son. Now that was clearly a joke. My dad's not Jay Johnson. He's killed far fewer people with drone fire. But no one laughed, except for Jay Johnson, who said, "Oh my God." My new teacher said, "DJ, I'm worried you've misunderstood the game. Did you think this was 2 lies and a truth? Are you not from New Jersey?" And I said, "How dare you?" He said, "Are you suggesting then that you've seen a jackalope?" And I said, "No, I'm proving it." And I reached into the pocket of my yellow hooded sweatshirt, and I pulled out a picture of me and a motherfucking jackrabbit. That is true. Jay Johnson said, "Oh my God." And I'm going to pause the story, because if you've never seen a jackrabbit, it's got biceps like an inmate and red eyes like Satan. And the only thing that distinguishes a jackrabbit from a fantasy creature called the jackalope is it doesn't have the horns that make a jackalope a jackalope. I knew that the picture pulsating in my hands was not a picture of a jackalope, but I was smart enough to know that if I held that picture high enough that people had to squint at it, and I held it with the confidence of a boy, nay a man, holding a picture of a jackalope, no one would have the balls to say, "That's not a jackalope." But here's the thing. Jay Johnson Jr. said that's not a jackalope. For a smart kid, he had balls. I said, "Why would you even say that?" But no one even heard me say that, because they were laughing, but not with me. Mr. Nose said, "DJ, would you like to sit down?" And I said, "Mr. Nose, would you like to tell the class what this is a picture of?" And he looked at the class, and he looked at my picture, and he looked at my face, which needed that picture to be of a jackalope. And he said what is, to this day, the most generous thing I've heard a man say in my real life. "That's a picture of a jackalope." Despite his best efforts, the second I turned my back to sit down, the smart kids at the school for the intellectually smart started calling me Jack. Killer dis, cerebral dis, painful nickname to have when your name is not John. That day, I spent the train ride home thinking I just had the worst day of my life. I was also thinking, I gotta get them all back. I kept wondering if there was some way that I could do to the kids at my school what Carrie did to the kids in Carrie. Then I thought to myself, chill. I'll just have to bust their asses at the Brain Buster. I'm gonna pause the story here. The Brain Buster was a regional broadcast in the state of New Jersey that plagiarized wholesale the structure and content of the game show Jeopardy! Now, my parents watched Jeopardy! Every night. So when I found out that the Brain Buster Kids Showcase was coming to my school for the intellectually smart, I said, "Mr. Nose, you gotta put me in that Brain Buster Kids Showcase." Mr. Nose said, "Sure," because the Brain Buster aired on public access and the stakes were pretty low for everyone involved. Everyone except for me. Because I kept raising the stakes higher and higher for myself personally by walking up to every kid who called me Jack behind my back and talking the wildest shit. I'd be in line at the cafeteria and I'd ask the kid in front of me what the lunch special was. And I'd hear the kid behind me whisper, "Jackalope." And I'd turn around and say, "Jackalope, now that is special. But next Sunday, at the Brain Buster, I want you to wear something just as special as that. I want you to go home and tell your parents that you have a very special school dance coming, and a church social, and a job interview all on the same day. And I want them to buy you the most special suit that money can buy. Because there's going to be a lot of cameras at the Brain Buster. And I want you to look good as possible when I make you look dumb as shit." And that was just one instance where I said something like that. And that kid didn't even call me Jack. Didn't matter. After the Brain Buster, no one was going to call me Jack ever again. I was going to change my reputation forever among the intellectually smart and the rest of New Jersey. Maybe I'd even be hailed with a new nickname when I won. A good one. Like the Brain, or Brainiac, or Hero. 3 cheers for the hero. 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 The Brain. When the day finally came, I showed up for the Brain Buster in a yellow-on-yellow suit. Hey, Mom, child abuse! My mom was in the audience as per my many requests. The Brain Buster people broke contestants up into 2 groups. I was in Group A, and in full earshot of my mother, I walked up to the kids in Group B and I said, I want you to put your smartest kid next to your dumbest kid. Because the slow kid might be fast with the buzzer, and y'all two are gonna need each other when I'm brain busting that ass. I walked up to the podium. Mr. Nose asked the first question because Mr. Nose was the guest host. The first question was, what is the name of the first woman to circumnavigate the world in an airplane? I was fast with the buzzer. Things were going great, but I'm going to pause the story here. You see, I was a smart kid. I always thought so. So I always knew that Amelia Earhart was the first woman to circumnavigate the world in an airplane. But when I was on the Brainbuster Kid Showcase, and the Brainbuster camera closed in on me to showcase my face to the state of New Jersey, I saw the little lens of the big camera open up like the eye of God. And when I saw that, I saw a picture in my head of me holding up a picture of a jackrabbit and getting laughed at by a classroom of the intellectually smart. And when I remembered that, I also remembered that every night when my parents watched Jeopardy, it was my parents watching Jeopardy. I had, in fact, never answered a question correctly from that show or any other place else. Not even, do you know what's a jackalope? And when Mr. Nose asked, what is the name of the first woman to circumnavigate the world in an airplane? I answered, Betsy Ross. When I think of how I felt that day, I feel my hands shake. Mr. Nose then did the least generous thing I have ever seen a man do in my life to this day, and said, DJ, would you like to take another guess? Now, I would have liked to have answered Mr. Nose as saying, why would you even ask me that? But the words that I spoke on that fateful day were why? I suppose it was just one word. And as my eyes scanned the crowd and saw the eyes of every parent in New Jersey, I saw my mother ask my father, why is he saying why? I saw Jay Johnson, the Secretary of Homeland Security under Barack Obama. I think I saw him mouth the words, oh my God, but I can't be sure. Because the moment that I saw him, my brain busted out of my skull and was watching this catastrophe unfold from an indifferent vantage point 12,000 feet in the sky, like a drone. I've only heard rumors about what happened next. One that I keep hearing is that I pissed in my yellow-on-yellow suit. Thankfully, cameras can't prove that when you're wearing a yellow-on-yellow suit. Hey, Mom, Parent of the Year. But what's certain is that I turned around without saying another word and walked off stage. To this day, when I return to the state of New Jersey for more than a day, without fail, someone will call me Betsy. The name Betsy echoes through my life and connects me to all of its worst days. I hear the name Betsy. I see Cameron Davidson using a glass of water to make me piss myself at my sleepover birthday. I thought that was the worst day of my life. It was fine by the next morning. I just went to school early and told everyone he tried to kiss me. I hear the name Betsy. I remember when Chris Calveo punched me till I peed a little. I thought that was the worst day of my life. It was fine a week later. My parents sent me to a school for the intellectually smart. I hear the name Betsy, and I can see myself on the train ride home from the Brainbuster Kids Showcase. You know what I thought on that day? I thought to myself, Harry Potter really didn't have it that bad. He didn't. Yeah, he spent a couple of Christmases under the stairs, but he spent the next 10 years subjecting all those who wronged him to his untouchable mastery of magic. And he had a cool nickname. People called him the boy who lived. That's way better than Betsy. Hell, Jack is a better nickname than Betsy. Jack's kind of a cool nickname. We've had great Jack presidents. We'll probably never have a Betsy president. I'm sorry if your name's Betsy. That's not even me being a dick, though. It's just not a good look for you. We're probably going to have 5, 6 more presidents tops. There won't be a Betsy in the bunch. But here's the point. I thought the Brainbuster was the worst day of my life while it was happening. I thought this can't get any worse. I was wrong. Because what I realized on the train ride back home is that things can always get worse. Because just like Betsy is a worse nickname than Jack, 20 years from now, I'll probably have a worse nickname than Betsy and be here waxing poetic about the days before people called me Impotent Ike. Don't you see? That's the great thing that happens when the worst thing that could happen happens to you. You live through it, and then something comes out of nowhere and obliterates its ceiling like the hellfire of an autonomous drone. And you know what? You live through that too. Unless, of course, the worst thing that happens to you is literally a drone obliterating your ceiling, because, it's game over. Point J. Johnson. But that probably won't happen to you, not till 5 or 6 presidents from now. And that's the point. You gotta look at things the right way. When life hands you your Betsy moment, you gotta say, hey, this could be my Impotent Ike moment. And even if you're at your Impotent Ike moment, it sure beats drone fire. And until drone fire beats us all, and it will, you gotta look at your life like it's a picture of a little boy standing next to a jackrabbit and say, you know what? I see a jackalope. I may not be smart, but I always knew how to do that.